Howdy folks, wanted to make a short video here today about this idea of support and how do we support our ideas using relevant evidence. So this is in our effort to work towards our main goal over on the left side here of our screen, that we're able to analyze with support how structural choices contribute to overall meaning of a text. And that text could be a piece of writing, that could be a poem, a play, a movie, a picture, anything. We can analyze it and then add support. So that's mainly what we're doing today. So you're going to have some statements that I'm going to give to you in this assignment that are kind of binary, where you can either agree or disagree with them or be somewhere in the middle, right? This isn't a totally black and white yes or no question. I think there's shades of which we can agree or disagree with something like this. So here's an example. Humans create and are controlled by societal rules. So you can think about that statement, and you can either say no, I don't quite see how humans create their societal rules, individually. I think those societal rules come from somewhere else. Or you could say, yeah, humans make laws and we are controlled by them. This answer could be answered just with a yes or no question. Yeah, I agree, I disagree. But what we're going to work towards is building a kind of grade appropriate response with support, like supporting our ideas well, really getting them defined and backed up. So how we're going to do that is with a three-step process. We're going to create a claim, which is our main idea. We're going to develop some reasons that support our claim. And then we're going to provide some evidence, so some examples that can support that reasoning, and then ultimately our main idea. So the claim is kind of like what I think. Reasoning is why I think that. And the evidence is how am I going to support this? So what, why, and how. Specifically, anytime I ask you to use one of these verbs, so if I ask you to analyze something or interpret or explain something, I want you to be using this three-step process. Create a claim. What's your main idea? Why do you think that? How can you support that idea? So let's take a look at it. So using that idea that humans create and are controlled by their own society, I might start with something like this. I have to start with a beginning point for my claim. Humans make their own rules. And yes, that's a claim that works on its own. But again, we're trying to push ourselves in terms of our writing ability. So I'm going to ask that as you're creating your claim, you follow these couple of steps. Then we try to create sort of this complex or compound sentence that really gets to what we're talking about. We're going to narrow in very specifically with our claims. So I'm going to take this, humans make their own ideas. I'm going to start with this big idea. I might revise it a little bit. I'm going to add a transition word, because these words generally force me to take an idea and put it in comparison with another idea, which is a great way to add some specificity and really think about, okay, here's what I'm actually saying. And then I'm going to end this statement with really getting at the specifics of what my perspective is on this concept. So I take this, humans make their own rules, and I change that through revision and through thinking through these three steps. And I come up with humans have been creating societal rules for centuries in order to keep the world a balanced place. That's my big idea. Then I'm going to use a transition. And although they help us maintain our place inside the lines, right? Use that although and continue that thought. They can also limit and challenge our human tendencies. And so I've gone with my big idea, expanded it, used one of those transition words to get me to my main idea is this concept that the human rules that we make can limit and challenge our human tendencies. So the rest of the paragraph would kind of be really explaining, okay, what do I mean by limiting and challenging our human tendencies? And why do I think that? So that would be what my paragraph, what my support is going to center around. And so I like to call this the creation of a nuanced argument when we're going through this three-step process. We have step one, create that commonly held belief or figure out that big idea. Add one of our transition words, also known as a conjunctive adverb if you're looking at the specific grammatical term. And then a brief explanation of what you believe and why. So if you're freaking out about the word conjunctive adverbs, that's okay. Boom. I've got a list right here for you and linked on our assignment. So you can pause and take a look at any of these. Will kind of push you to think a little bit differently, or think, okay, what else connects with this idea that I just listed? So that's creating our claim. Let's take a look at some evidence. Like how do I go from a claim to reasoning to evidence? And so these are different types of support that we can use. You can use personal experience. What have you seen in your own life? What have you felt in your own life? What have you read about in books, or seen in movies, or seen on popular media? You could go out and do your own research. Like this would be a great evidence, great support for an idea. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to do this all the time, but we'll work on research papers next semester. But know that is there. Simple observations, like I see this happening in the world, that can be used as support. You can create hypothetical examples, right? You don't have to actually have seen it in the world, but you can imagine, okay, imagine a scenario where this happens. That's a hypothetical support. You can use references to popular media, books, movies, literature, classes that you've taken, anything you can refer to that. Or taking it a step farther, you can bring in a direct citation. So here's like a quote from a movie or a book or a news article. All of these are valid types of support. Specifically for this response, probably asking you to take a look at personal experience, observations, or hypotheticals. I'm not expecting you to go out and do research and find some citations, but I'm betting you can pull something from your own life to support these ideas. So let's take a look at what this looks like all put together. So I've got my main claim highlighted in orange here. And you can kind of see how I reference the prompt or reference an idea, and then I get to here's specifically what I think. And I actually kind of break my mold a little bit. So instead of doing belief, adverb, explanation, I do adverb, belief, explanation, because I start off with this word. While I agree in principle with the big idea this, however, the however is kind of implied here. Extreme damaging situations like these put a limit on no pain, no gain mentalities. So here's the main idea that I'm trying to convey. And then I flip it again. So instead of going from, let's see if I can find it, instead of going from claim to reasoning to evidence, I go claim to evidence to reasoning. So I'll show you what that looks like. Sorry, I got to jump back through here. So recently I read an article on homework, blah, blah, blah. I starting with that specific piece of evidence, like I'm citing this support, this example to back up my idea, and that lands me on, so here's why I think this. This is what I think. This is kind of what led me to think that, and then this is why I think this idea. There's kind of a backwards progression, but it's still a progression there. So your assignment is going to be to create a claim based on one of those statements that I've provided for you, whether you agree or disagree with it. Come up with some reasoning. Why do I believe that? And come up with some evidence as to, okay, how do I support this idea? Just some brief suggestions before you get writing. Brainstorm a little bit. Think about, okay, what personal thoughts do I have on this, and what personal experience can I relate to this? Have I seen it represented in movies or in the news or in books or in real life? Do I hear politicians talking about it? Consider the extremes. Like, what if we believed in this idea completely? Or what if we never believed in this idea ever? What would those two extremes look like? And then if you're still having trouble getting going, maybe use one of these starters and say, this statement reminds me of, or this statement is true / false because blank. And get that going as you're writing, and then come back to that sentence and delete this initial part. Because I'm betting whatever you wrote after that is probably pretty good, and it doesn't need this sentence starter. You can just kind of chop that off. All right. Good luck, folks.